Let's get into it. Coach Colin News here. Man, Stephen A. Smith. You've been hearing about Stephen A. Smith. He's been very outspoken. He's making the political play. You know, he's a sports guy. He's still with the sports, but he makes sure to touch on politics, the election, things like that. Trump, Biden. He's given his opinion. And his opinions have been well measured and thought out. I don't always agree with them, especially when he talks about Trump needing to be more statesmanly and can't have somebody who's mean and this and that. But he said some good things. He said some very valid things about Biden, about the Democratic Party, about what they're doing, about how he doesn't like it. And those points have stood strong. But Stephen A. Smith buckled. He buckled. Like so many people in the black community do, they say things that are true, and then all of a sudden the phone calls come. I don't know who makes the phone calls, people, but somebody made some phone calls to Stephen A. Smith, and he ended up backtracking like I've never seen Stephen A. Smith backtrack before in my life. But first, I'm going to show you what exactly he said. Then I'm going to show you a clip of Keith Olbermann. I don't care. You know who I'm talking about. Dude looks like Rosie O'Donnell, which could be good or bad, depending on who you are, how you see things. Now, he's talking about Stephen A. Smith should be fired or silenced in regular Keith form. This is very regular for Keith. Actually, pretty toned down view for Keith. But I'm going to show you that clip, and then I'm going to show you the clip of Stephen A. Smith just backtracking, like he's rollerblading backwards. You remember rollerblades? Me neither. Let's get into it.
I want you to make the case with this as the setup. But he did it. Now, I don't like the cases in New York. I didn't like the AG's case. I don't like this case. But the overarching concern is he did these things. How can you just let him get away with it? With that basis, how do you see the situation with prosecuting Trump?
I'm not an advocate of anybody getting away with crimes. I'm a man about the law. I believe in obeying the law. And if you do the crime, you need to do some time. That's my mentality. If crime is what is called for as opposed to a civil penalty or what have you. My issue, Chris, is this. I'm of the mindset that you're not going to get him. That no matter what level of guilt you can attach to him, it's not going to equate to jail time. It's not going to equate to him being removed as the presumptive GOP nominee and the Republican candidate for the presidency of the United States. So why are you continuing to politicize all of this by using the courts, using lawfare, as a lot of people call it, to engage in this kind of battle with him to take him down, as opposed to preparing yourself as a party to go up against him? I think the argument that's being made against him, where the courts and politicians are using the courts, clearly they're doing that. That argument that's being made against him, it's foolhardy because it's not working. You know, I've had Democrats reach out to me and say to me, shh, be quiet, don't say anything, you know, because you're a voice, Stephen, and you resonate with folks, and please don't tip people off. Let us do what we do. Well, damn it ain't working. You're losing momentum before our very eyes. He's winning in 6 or 7 polls last time I checked, at least a week ago or so. He's gained momentum. And my point is, when you got 4 indictments and 91 counts and 2 impeachments and civil suits that you've lost in excess of $454 million in terms of the rulings and everything else, but he still keeps marching forward, gaining momentum. What are you going to do about it? I in no way meant to give any kind of impression that if he did a crime, he shouldn't pay the price. What I'm saying is you can't seem to get him. He seems to be Teflon. So the only way to get him is to beat him. And they don't seem to be able to do that either. And I'm quite disgusted by it, to be quite honest with you.
I won't give up his name, but a guy who you and I both know, who is a legend in hip-hop, called me and said, I know you won't say this, but here's what you should say, is that it took the over-prosecution of a rich white man to show how easily the system can be abused. And that black men and poor people have been put up on cases for generations just because the system could and wanted to do it, even though it wasn't really serving any greater good and lives have been lost. But now that it's Trump, there's a 2-tier justice system, and we have to fight back about the maladministration of justice. And you know what? He was right. But
absolutely,
Trump with these two cases in New York, he is getting too much credit for being victimized because these cases in New York suck so bad. That Georgia case is a different case.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, demanding, looking for looking for the votes, trying to get a certain number of votes.
Called up and said, "You got to find me the votes."
And change. You got to find me 11,000
Yeah.
votes. No question. That is a different case. But right now we're dealing with the one in New York. And that hip-hop artist who called you, he's right on the money. And not only that, here's the sad part about it, Chris. It gives credence to the argument Trump made during a speech weeks ago where he talked about black folks relating to him and his plight. Now, what the hell would black folks have to do? What would they have in common with a guy that was born, on third base thinking he hit a home run, born with the proverbial spoon in his mouth? It's the legal system. Because on many, many occasions when you see some of the notable figures from African-American communities throughout this nation that did everything they could to create change, including the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., you saw how the law was manipulated or how law enforcement was manipulated to assist in bringing people down. That's the belief emanating from the black community. And so when you see Trump speaking about that, what's more appalling, believe it or not, than him actually saying that is us sitting back and acknowledging he has a point. Because the Democratic Party comes to the black community, and I can say this because 95% of the time I voted Democrat. The only time I've ever voted for a Republican is when I voted for Chris Christie for governor in New Jersey. That was it. So I can say this. I'm looking at a Democratic Party that looks at the black community, that says, we're there for you, we're there for you, we get where you're coming from. We've got xenophobia, we've got homophobia, we got transphobia, we got all of these things that have taken a priority and elevated in the level of importance over racism. But when it's time to vote, you want to talk to black people about what you're doing for them and how you're looking out for us and how you are on our side. But this man right here, who's the GOP, the presumptive GOP nominee, is in a position to literally get back into the White House because what you're doing to him, we find eerily relatable to things that have been done to folks in our community, and it's happened for decades. There's no escaping that fact. And Trump pointing it out and being accurate in doing so is perhaps the height of embarrassment for the Democratic Party, in my estimation.
Now, were those things? Voting for Chris Christie. That's he always says such weird things, such odd things, but whatever. But you heard what he said. A lot of these things were true. Now, again, he had to backtrack his comments. He even alluded to Trump being guilty in the Georgia case. It's not good enough. If you're gonna be on the left, you're gonna be all the way. It's not good enough. He even alluded to Trump being privileged, spoon in the mouth, as he said. He said all these things. What they're doing to Trump is not working. That's true. The left has lost momentum in regards to the whole Trump versus Biden thing. That's true. Trump has more momentum. That's true. They can't beat him. Very true. He's saying nothing but true things. Blacks do identify with him. That is very true, especially people from the quote-unquote hood. Those people identify with him. Because a main aspiration, I've been very poor. When you're poor, Louis C.K. even has a joke about it. When you're poor, rich people never think about what they would do if they were poor. Poor people always think about what they would do if they were rich. So when they look at him, they go, this is exactly what I would do. I would have a building and my name would be on it, and I would run for president, and I'd date supermodels, and I'd have rappers talk about me. Like, I'd be on TV. Of course, he's doing all the things that somebody coming from a very, poverty would do if they got into that position. They would try to, at least. So he does identify. And then the whole thing with the court cases happen out of nowhere, and none of the charges make any sense. A lot of people in the hood are going through that constantly going through that. And he says at the end, black people are being overlooked until it's voting time. All these things are very true. This is not all Stephen A. Smith said, though. And again, why would you walk back comments that are true? Well, because when you get those phone calls that we talked about at the beginning, you better get in line. You better get in line. When they make those calls and they say you said something that was wrong, you said something over the line, You've seen it time and time again. I don't see this happen on the right, really. But I see it happen on the left quite a bit. This gentleman, Stephen A. Smith, has been corrected. But again, he didn't say anything that was a lie. He wasn't lying about the Democratic Party. He wasn't lying about the left. He wasn't lying about the whole Trump and Biden thing. He didn't say one lie. But remember, you do not get fired. You do not get persecuted for lying. Lying gets you put on a pedestal in the mainstream media world, which he comes from. But telling the truth is a different story. I'm going to play another clip of some things that Stephen A. Smith said.
Trump, I think about this case in New York. I mean, I'm looking at the Democrats right now. And again, primarily, I have voted Democrat throughout my life, but I'm utterly disgusted with what I'm seeing because it seems to me that they're trying to use the law in the courts. They've clearly politicized this thing with Donald Trump because they can't come up with a strategy to offset the momentum he's clearly gained. In at least 5 polls, he's up. He's up in the polls over Biden, at least 5 polls that I counted. That's the reality of the situation. Despite the counts against them, the indictments against them, being impeached twice and all of this other stuff, he is the presumptive GOP nominee. And you don't seem to have the issues in your favor, you believe. So because of that, you're going to manipulate the system as best as you possibly can to avoid him possibly running for re-election again. That appears to be their strategy, but I'm here to tell you, it's not working.
There you go. Nothing too crazy. He didn't say anything too crazy there. All of that was true. And he said something that was on his mind, how he's disgusted by seeing them use the courts. And a lot of us are. When you see that kind of thing, it's not only disgusting, it's scary. And you don't know who it's going to happen to next. And if it happened to people who are running for the highest office, obviously it's going to slowly trickle down. You know, when you're running for president, the other person who's in power, they see you eye to eye. But what happens next? Is it going to be people who say something? Is it going to be people who post something? Is it going to be people who you were overheard in your house talking about this political party and how you support it? That actually happens in Cuba. That's a thing that goes on in Cuba. So they make sure you can't even really talk amongst yourselves because they have this whole communist regime where people receive benefits or reward for snitching on each other. Keeps everybody in line. Keeps whoever's in power in power. And if you think that can't happen here, maybe you're right, but maybe you're wrong. Now, let's go on. This is Keith Olbermann talking about Stephen A. Smith and what he thinks needs to happen to him. I'm sure this is one of many people who started voicing their opinion. And what I think should happen is Stephen A. Smith should double down. But I'll show you what actually happened after we play this clip.
Here are the headlines from the Tuesday edition of the Countdown Podcast, now live wherever you podcast. ESPN must either silence its top figure, Stephen A. Smith, or fire Stephen A. Smith. Once upon a time, a long time ago, you could be on one television channel talking benignly about good old sports, while you were also on another television channel talking about party politics, partisanship, and even endorsing one presidential candidate over another. A long time ago. I know this because I used to do it a long time ago. A long time ago, like 2010. But this is no longer 2010. So why is ESPN letting Stephen A. Smith go on Fox News and campaign for Donald Trump? They either have to silence him or they have to get rid of him. All that plus the news headlines. Trump now thinks that his thugs should be, to quote his online post, allowed to protest at the front steps of courthouses all over the country.
It's amazing that he can just say, like, he actually makes things up. Every time I look into it, I'm like, oh, let's see what that's about. And it's not there. He just makes, it's very odd to see. Very, very odd to see. But also, you know, I'm glad I played that clip because he kind of said the quiet part out loud. He goes, you used to be able to go and speak your mind places. You know, I know because I used to do it. He's like, but it's not 2010 anymore. So why is Stephen A. Smith allowed to speak his mind? And I have to be a puppet for the people behind. Why do I have to be a puppet and Stephen A. Smith gets to talk about Donald Trump? Why can't I do? Well, what's going on here? He said the quiet part out loud. I don't even think he realizes that. Very interesting. And again, everything that I just played for you. Would that sound like Stephen A. Smith is campaigning for Donald Trump? I don't think so. But when it comes to woke, the left, Democratic, whatever you want to call this whole weird thing that's going on that side of the fence, it's not enough. It's not enough for you to talk sense. It's not enough for you to allude to Trump being guilty of something. It's not enough for you to allude to how privileged he is. It's not enough for you to say that you've never voted Republican except for one time. That's not enough for them. So then they make the calls. And then this happens. Listen to Stephen A. Smith talk about his comments. Listen.
I wanted to touch on something that I made news about just a few days ago. Let me say this, ladies and gentlemen. Accountability is where everything needs to begin in this world. It's something I say quite often. I certainly never hesitate to hold folks accountable when mistakes or mishaps occur, so I'm certainly not about to run from it myself. I'm fully aware that I've been in the news over the last few days, paraded all over social media as well, after comments I made during my appearance on Fox News' Hannity last week with the one and only Sean Hannity himself. And I'm fully aware of the outcry that has ensued because of it. A lot of folks in Black America seem pretty pissed at me right now, from friends and loved ones to colleagues, contemporaries, and dare I say even the NAACP itself. Quite a few folks were put off, if not flat out offended, after my words were interpreted as associating support for Trump from the Black community with all the legal issues he's facing. For that, I sincerely apologize. To be clear, my words were misconstrued. I'm stating right here for the record that my words were taken out of context, misrepresenting and depicting me in a way I found every bit as insulting and disrespectful as folks in Black America evidently felt about what they thought I said. But I'll own it anyway. Because please know that I know the buck stops with me. I'm in the communication business. I've been here for 30 years, so regardless of whatever interpretation that accompanies any words coming out of my mouth, the responsibility ultimately lies with me first and foremost before anybody else. I've always felt that way. I still do. I always will. Period. Blacks who refuse to support Trump are aware of his history of issues. And we'll never forget how Trump claimed Obama, the nation's first Black president, wasn't even qualified to hold office because he was born in Kenya, although Trump recanted the statement during his 2016 campaign run for the presidency. Yet Trump's dissenters were not the topic of discussion when I was talking to Hannity. The support he appears to be receiving in the polls was what was being discussed. 5 polls, count them, 5. Emerson, NBC News, Daily Kos, New York Times, and Rasmussen, all big national polls had Trump leading over the last few weeks. Plus, according to 538, recent local polls also put Trump ahead in battleground states. He's up 6 points in Michigan, Arizona, and Georgia each. Insofar as Trump gaining support in the Black community, well, how about various publications with these headlines? The Chicago Tribune. This time, Trump really does seem to be making Black voter inroads. Why? The Washington Post. Voters of color are shifting right. Are Democrats doomed? How about the New York Times? As Black voters drift to Trump, Biden's allies say they have work to do. Axios wrote, Big Biden bummer. New York Times Siena poll shows gaps with key demographic groups. Wall Street Journal. Biden loses support among Black men. The Hill. Biden losing support among Black voters in swing states. Colin survey. Al Jazeera. Why are Black voters backing Donald Trump in record numbers? And CBS News. Black voter support for Trump up from 4% to 23% poll finds. Why did I say all of that? Because I want to show you I didn't just open my mouth. I read, I listened, and I've seen a momentum shift, as we all have. Anywhere I appear, no matter my subjectivity relating to what I feel, is still going to be based on facts being presented into the stratosphere. That is who I've always been. It is what I will always continue to be. But it's never exercised with malice in my heart and soul. Certainly never to insult or harm the black community, my community. My thoughts are put out there to present views I believe are pertinent, that alerts us to what's going on, what missteps may be taking place, and how, if at all, they could be corrected. I hope everyone can understand and appreciate my intent, if nothing else, as we march forward right here with the Stephen A. Smith Show. But just because my intent was harmless doesn't mean my words were harmless, and I know that. I can always do better, and I'll strive to do just that every single day that I'm alive.
Man, near the end, you can see what he's actually how he's trying to backpedal. It's in a very, not aggressive way, but at least he's trying to stand firm a little bit. But you can see as you listen to him talk, he's really saying, as he showed all those little, news headlines, he's saying, see, look, I'm not just saying it. It's what I read. It's not what I feel. No. This is not what I feel. It's just things that I read. I was just saying what I read. I have to tell the people. He's actually trying to position it like I'm just trying to help. I see the shortcomings, and I'm just trying to help, guys. Which, that's great. But then also, at the beginning, he apologizes for connecting, black voters identifying with Trump. He apologized, connecting with Trump via the legal issues that he's currently having. But that's the truth. That's true. Again, see what I said before this clip about how where lying gets you and where telling the truth gets you. He actually had to apologize for the truth that he spoke. And then he had to reiterate and let them know that all the other truths that he spoke, it were just things that he read. It's not how he feels. I'm on the side. I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm on the Democrat plantation. I'm not leaving. Man, sad to see, man. You got to know, Stephen A. Smith has just jumped into this whole giving opinions thing, but you don't have to double down all the time. I won't say that. You don't have to double down, but if you spoke truth, you should be able to either discard all these calls, loved ones and colleagues and, all these organizations that are calling him. Discard all of them. Just say, I don't care. Everything I said was true. Are you mad at me because I said the truth? And move on and don't make a video about it. But for him to do this, to make a video about it, that's a clear message that I know I've stepped out of line and I am now stepping back in line. I'm going to attack Trump a little bit in my speech. I'm going to apologize to everybody. I'm going to let you know that that's not really how I feel. These are just things that I read. Look at all these articles. They said it. I was just saying what they said. That's how the left gets you, quite honestly. I know a lot of people don't like it to be left and right type of things, but this is a clear a clear buck breaking from the left. Stephen A. Smith getting a little cocky, jumping on this show, jumping on that show. Can't do that. You heard Keith. Keith even said, he goes, we're not allowed to do that anymore. It's not 2010 where we can go and speak our minds in different places and be fine. No. He either has to be silenced or fired. That I love that I played that Keith clip because that sums up exactly what's happening with him. You're going to be silenced or you're going to be fired because it's not back in the day where you could just speak your mind. You do not get to speak your mind anymore. You're either on our side or you're about to get fired, silenced, canceled, smeared. A bunch of things are going to happen to you. How do you respond? I just want to apologize for my words. I know my words are not harmless. Man, I'm laughing, but it's actually pretty sad because I think Stephen A. Smith can be a really strong voice for black people and just in politics in general. I think he has literally a strong voice, but then also these strong opinions. And he is intelligent. You know, although he voted for Chris Christie, you know, he is intelligent. Voted for Chris Christie, but thinks Trump is he's not statesmanly enough. He could still be smart and think those things. He's just not smart all the time. That's all. But that's Stephen A. Smith, just backtracking what he said. I'm going to be watching him close now because I want to see what he says next. It seems like what's going to happen from here on out is he's going to start watching his words. And we've seen that happen time and time again to people. You know? I just hope I don't see him in a dress anytime soon. Ugh. Might end up the Charles Barkley route. Little dress on, go on CNN, get your show canceled. You guys know that about Charles Barkley, right? His show got canceled. He did everything they said. He put on the dress. He said he punched black people in the face if they wore a Trump shirt. They're like, your job is done. Goodbye. He's like, what? But I said I'd punch him. Good. And we have it recorded. It's on the internet for life. Bye, sir. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think about Stephen A. Smith's comments. Now, again, like I said, it was a backtrack, and it is him apologizing. But he tried, you know what? I'm not even going to mince my words. He tried to play it like as if he was standing firm, but I can really see, I can read between the lines. He was not standing firm in this whole thing. He was making sure to apologize. He was showing them that it's not really how he feels. He's apologizing to all the people who made calls to him and everything. He folded to the left. I was going to say something else that was much nicer, but that's how I really feel. Anyways, guys, like, subscribe, share, helps tremendously, and I'm out.